This is part one of our two-parter on the water filtration installation that we are currently going through on our Widebeam Canal boat.
It's a two-parter because having looked at all the installation we have to do, I figured it's going to be better to break it apart. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick round-the-table discussion about the science behind the installation, the considerations that we gave to its location where we actually installed it, and the installation itself.
We'll start off with a basic general background in the science behind this whole thing. We're looking at a three-phase system, and today we will cover the first phase, which is probably the biggest phase in some ways, which you've almost completely completed. Is that true? Will you get it done by the end of this video?
I have to.
Yeah, okay. Part 2 and 3 involve filtration underneath the sink and the RO unit. So we'll deal with those in the next part. So 6 filters in the first part and the UV filter, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so how does it all work, Jamie?
So we have already written a blog post about a basic filtration system, and that was a 4-filter system. But this one is a 6-filter system, and the reason why we're going for 6 filters is because, of course, we are trying to filter canal water. So on our 6-filter system, 3 of those 6 filters are literally sediment micron filters.
So bits, stuff that's in the water, actual physical things.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it starts with a 20 micron filter, a 10 micron filter, and then a 5 micron filter.
Yeah.
So as you say, this is literally just bits. The idea is that you want the water to be getting to the UV treatment part of the filtration system as clear as possible.
So the first 3 filters deal with sediment bits in the water, and then on 4 and 5 we've got carbon blocks. This is a solid block of crushed carbon which offers better purification than the more common granular activated carbon filter. Because the particle sizes are finer, it has a larger surface area for contaminants to adhere to.
It does also get rid of things like pesticides and what are called VOCs, which are industrial chemicals. I have to check my notes here because remember, we are not scientists.
No.
We are learning on the go. But a lot of people did talk about what about pesticides, the wash off from the fields into the canal. So
which we can see happening. We know it happens.
Exactly, yeah. So these carbon filters will go some way to getting rid of these sorts of things. One of the other things are disinfection byproducts. And we're going to talk a bit about this in a moment when we talk about adding things like chlorine to the water.
Yes.
Because you have these things called DBPs, which are disinfectant byproducts. And unfortunately, that is one of the things that you are doing when you add chlorine to your water. That will eventually end back up into the canal. And that is, in our book, a big no-no. We want to try and avoid that. But anyway, the carbon filters will help reduce that and obviously get rid of some of the finer sediments as well. That only goes some way to removing these because we end up with this 1 micron
Okay,
filter.
and what does that actually do?
So that is the same as the first filters, except of course you're talking about microscopic little holes now. Now it is removing extra things like cysts.
Drinking water, if you're not careful, can contain cysts. These are single-celled organisms called protozoans which can cause intestinal illnesses like giardiasis. A combination of carbon block filters and a 1 micron filter can help remove these nasties. The final stage in our off-grid water system is the UV treatment.
The UV treatment has to have clear water because what it is doing is penetrating active bacteria. So this is bacteria that is alive.
Yes.
And the way that the UV works is that it shoots them with UV rays and it makes them inactive.
Okay.
It's basically scrambling their DNA.
So it's like, is it killing them? We just call it inactive, do we? Is that the word we use?
Yeah, making them inactive.
Right.
So that's why the water, when it gets to this point, has to be absolutely crystal clear because any kind of turbidity inside that water is going to block those UV rays. So that UV treatment will essentially kill off pretty much most living organisms.
Things like E. coli, which is the obvious thing that people always quote when they talk about canal water. It will get rid of it.
By this point, the E. coli has been removed. Okay. But this does bring us on to the idea that perhaps we should then be adding something to the water. So at this point, we're now filling up our water tanks.
Okay.
The question is, do we then add something like chlorine, which,
Yes.
as we know, is a powerful disinfectant,
Yes.
or something like hydrogen peroxide?
So we moved from chlorine on our old boat, on our sea boat, on our sailing boat, from chlorine to hydrogen peroxide. It really helped me because I'm slightly allergic to chlorine, and I found suddenly my skin was better and my eyes felt better and everything was better. So can we do that on here, or do we have to have one of...
Yes. Okay. So chlorine and hydrogen peroxide are not mutually exclusive. That you
Right.
it's not a case of one or the other. Chlorine, of course, is much more powerful, and it has residual power as well, which basically means that when you add it to your water, it will sit there and work as long as it is sitting in the water.
Right.
Hydrogen peroxide oxidizes, so it does its thing, but it does its thing at the moment that you add it to the water.
I see.
Okay, then it just naturally breaks up, and because of that, is actually a lot safer to use.
Yes.
Chlorine, on the other hand, can produce these DPPs, which are these disinfectant byproducts, which is what you don't want in your water.
Or in the canal.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you do about it?
Well, this is the question. I've been thinking hard about this. I'd be interested to know what people think out there, because for me personally, I prefer to use hydrogen peroxide. Now, at this point, we should say that what these two are doing is essentially a safeguard after the UV treatment, but the
Yeah.
UV treatment should already have got rid of the nasties in your water.
So if we hadn't put the chlorine or the hydrogen peroxide in, would you shower in that water?
Good question. Yes,
Right.
in theory, by this point, you've got rid of most nasties that allow you to shower safely and even clean your teeth safely.
Oh.
So if you accidentally swallow a tiny bit of water, at this point, it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
The one thing it hasn't removed are things like heavy metals.
At this point in the process, the water is now incredibly safe microbiologically, but the UV system only addresses living organisms. It doesn't remove dissolved inorganic contaminants, including hard minerals like calcium and magnesium, heavy metals like lead, arsenic, mercury or cadmium, nitrates, nitrites, fluoride and salts. Neither will the UV treatment remove dissolved organic chemicals. That's the job of the carbon filters. But if there are persistent or high levels of certain pesticides, pharmaceuticals or industrial chemicals that the carbon didn't fully absorb, the UV light won't remove them either. While all that sounds scary, at this point the water in your tanks is safe enough to wash with. In theory, it could be okay to drink as well, but we're not prepared to take that risk, and we'll come on to extra safeguards for potable water in our next video. Are we going to test the water at that stage as well as when it comes out of the tap? So we've got two stages. We've got the stuff that's going into the tank that we can shower in. We'll be able to do that immediately. Then once stages 2 and 3 are completed, we should test that as well. Shouldn't we test them separately, see if there's any difference?
Yes, I think what I propose doing is testing the water that we are currently taking on board from the boatyard,
Right,
which
yeah.
is just the municipal drinking water.
Yeah.
Then we'll test the canal water.
Right.
Then we'll test the water that comes out of our 6-phase filtration system.
Yeah.
We will accompany this with another blog post that breaks all this down into some more detail. But I think that's enough of the science stuff.
Yeah.
We want to get onto the fun stuff.
Let's go and have a look at it, shall we? When we knew we were going to have the off-grid water system on our boat, we also knew exactly where we were going to put it. And that's here, where I'm sitting at the front, underneath the seat I'm sitting on, because it fits there perfectly. Jamie couldn't believe his luck, and he did all the measurements and it was going to fit here, and that's exactly what we were going to do. Not only does it fit under the seat, so it's out of the way, got easy access, it's right next to where the water goes in, the water tank. So everything, all the stars were aligned, this is what we're going to do. However, of course, although Jamie had thought of it and even his dad had suggested it, when I read a comment, have you thought about the frost and what's going to happen when it freezes over, alarm bells rang in my head, although they had already been ringing in Jamie's head, that perhaps this isn't their best idea. So you've got two problems. You've got the canal itself freezing over, you've got everything on the boat outside freezing, and you've got potentially not only hose pipes, but you've got the whole system freezing up here. We thought of maybe lagging it, maybe doing this, that and the other, but it gets really cold. And we're in Yorkshire at the moment, and when we first came here there was snow on the ground, so we do know it will freeze badly.
When we realised that we needed to install this system inside the boat, we first of all thought about the engine bay, but of course the engine bay is at the wrong end of the boat because it's over there, water tanks are here. Then we realised that in the bathroom we have this whole wall here. There used to be a radiator here. For some reason it's been removed, but it's the perfect spot to put our unit. The reason why it's a good place is because we are close to our freshwater system, our pressurised system. So I had in my mind that I could plumb into our freshwater system so that the water filter system fed directly into our freshwater system. Also, it provided a source of water to allow us to backflush the system when we needed to. And thirdly, of course, before putting filter water into our system, we wanted to test it as well. Well, we've got a sink here, so any excess water could just run through the sink. Then I went one step further and I realised we have another spot. This isn't quite wide enough to accommodate the whole board in its current state, but if I chopped the board down, hid the pump underneath the sink, we could probably fit it over there. I had settled on this location as the ideal spot and started drawing up a very rough schematic. On the left is our pump pulling in water from the canal, and on the right is our boat's pressurised freshwater system. After coming out of the UV treatment, the product water could either feed off into the sink for testing or be redirected into the boat's fresh water supply directly. It was also an opportunity to build in a backflush system. I got as far as approaching John Guest Plumbing Fittings, who were keen to help out with the necessary parts because, as you can see, this system required a lot of check valves, stopcocks and T-connections. And there was an additional issue of finding a power source. There are no 240-volt cables running into the bathroom that could be accessed easily. Then I realised I'm actually over-engineering this. I'm making this more complicated than I need to. The pump is rated at 70 psi going in, but we don't know what the pressure is coming out. Now, assuming our freshwater system on the boat is operated at around about 30 to 40 psi, there was every chance that the water coming out of the water filtration system wouldn't have enough pressure to feed directly into our pressurized water system. Then I came up with the final location, and this ticks all the boxes. Here we are in the cabin, and this is our final location for the OffGrid Water board that everything's mounted on. We have this great spot here by the door. Now, the good thing about the OffGrid Water system is that it has a very narrow profile, so when it's mounted on the wall here, it's not in the way. But more importantly, the pump is this end, and it was always our intention for the hose feeding the pump to go through the duck hatch, and that is just there where Liz is holding the camera. So it has a run of literally 2 meters to get out of the boat. The UV assembly, which is where the product water comes out, is at that end, and that is closer to our water tank, which means the run to the water tank is also quite short. And of course we've got power here as well, just behind the wall here. It ticked all the boxes. So the only issue then is actually mounting it on the wall. It's a fairly heavy unit, but it will all work if it just sits on the skirting board. So the skirting board will take the weight of this. All I then needed to do was to fix this to the wall. I was going to screw it to the wall and then thought, well, wouldn't it be good if we could make this movable? So what I've done is, what I'm in the middle of doing now, is to fix 2 extra battens against the wall. It's just a piece of oak that I got cut down the local wood merchant, painted white, and mount these to the wall. And here's the special little trick, is to use little gate mounts like this. The idea being, we mount them onto the batten like that, and they turn to hold this board in place. We then open them up and we can take this out. Why do we want to do this? Well, the first thing is that We want to test this, and I want to test it outside, mainly because I want to make sure the thing doesn't leak. So I can literally lift this board out of its position, take it to the bow of the boat, outside, test it. When I'm happy with it, I bring it back in, put it into position, close those little gate switches, and it's in place. I was overcomplicating this. This is such a straightforward solution. I wish I'd thought of it earlier.